Es que viendo esto no parece ahora que estamos en el Cairo.
Esto es la maravilla del Cairo. Vamos a ver, ahora mismo estamos en el centro de la ciudad y estamos en un espacio completamente abierto. De compras, venga.
No es fácil, moverse por aquí.
No, ya has visto que no es nada sencillo. Esto es pescado, probablemente será pescado del Mar Rojo o también de la costa norte, ¿no? De la zona de Alejandría. 16 libras, un kilo de gambas alejandrinas. 2 euros. Creo que dan a ti unos zapatos que arreglar y vamos a aprovechar. ¿Te acuerdas?
Bueno.
Que nosotros estas tradiciones las hemos perdido, ¿eh? Esa es gente que aquí me doy cuenta que trabajan hasta, a lo mejor hasta los 80, los 90 años, o sea, trabajan toda su vida.
¿Hay jubilación aquí?
Y para esta gente no la hay, y se transfieren en el negocio, de padres a hijos. Y es lo que tiene el Cairo, que es genuino, y esto lo vas a ver en cualquier sitio. Vamos a comprar unas fresas, que es la estación. Venga. O sea, el kilo cuesta 4 libras. O sea, en euros no llega a 50 céntimos.
¿No tienes cambio?
No. O sea, qué contraste. O sea, desde vender las berenjenas a 1,5 metros, como trabajando la madera aquí mismo en la calle. Es verdad que Cairo está creciendo, pero también sería una pena que todo esto, aquí al aire libre, se pueda perder.
Vamos coche y nos vamos a mover ya al otro lugar. Estos son nuestros, sí, tenemos una flota de autobuses bastante importante. Moverse por el Cairo es un sufrimiento desde que te levantas hasta que te acuestas. Mover 1 millón de coches en el Cairo cada día es una locura. Ahora estamos entrando en lo que nosotros llamamos el Nuevo Cairo. El Nuevo Cairo es una zona que se ha construido en unos 6 o 7 años. Esto era puro desierto.
Aquí, a diferencia de España, no hay crisis de la construcción, ¿no?
No, para nada. Se está construyendo una barbaridad. Si te fijas, son casas todas con su personalidad propia, tanto si nos gusta como si no. Les gusta mucho, si te fijas, el neoclásico barroco. Cada una de las casas es una familia.
¿A dónde vamos, Maricel?
Pues ahora vamos a una casa de un amigo mío que vive en una urbanización de las más elitistas. Es un lugar donde para venir aquí tienes que tener un cierto nivel económico, porque de lo contrario tú no puedes vivir aquí.
¿Hay dinero en el Cairo?
Sí, hay dinero en el Cairo. Los que tienen, tienen mucho, y los que no tienen nada. Es posible que incluso algunas de estas casas aquí lleguen a 2, 3 y 4 millones de euros. Pues esta es otra urbanización diferente un poco, la que habéis visto. Es una casa muy bonita, pensada para poder vivirla muy a gusto. Como podéis ver, tiene una piscina grande, y es una piscina grande pensando un poco en cómo es el jardín. La casita de invitados es lo que vamos a ver a continuación, que es esta zona que tenéis aquí. Cuando tú llegas aquí, te encuentras en un paraíso. Aquí no tenemos polución, no tenemos ruido, hay 5 grados menos que en el exterior, y aquí tenéis una prueba de lo que es realmente la ciudad de los 1000 minaretes.
Cairo is one of the most complicated cities of the world. A lot of people consider it as a lost case.
Cairo is now slowly being depopulated by its, let us say, middle class.
Now poor people feel that they have to revenge. They feel they have a right to steal from the rich people.
Oftentimes when I go downtown, I think, thank God I don't live in this mess.
They all look like computer-aided design villas with lots of florid details, sort of some columns and balustrades and balconies and marble.
The idea is to get out of the city, as if the inside is rotten. If you look at it just visually, the problem is slums. Now, the past 20 years, the neoliberal ideology of the government is to try and handle it as if it's an evil, a cancer that has to be drastically eliminated, because they consider in slums that we have the breeding of terrorist ideology, Islamism, poverty, violence, etc.
The government doesn't cope very well with keeping the streets clean, or with any aspect of what normal governments do. It is not very well done in Egypt. You can understand the desire of middle class and upper middle class Egyptians to live in a more controlled environment. Friends of mine, I'll just give an example. Their brand new building was all residential. Most of the people who lived in it were young families like themselves. And 20 years later, they found that most of the flats had been converted into offices. The elevators were being used as basically parts of the street, up and down. There was no more parking at all. It was too congested to park. And what really changed their minds was that they opened their bedroom window and found a mobile phone relay tower 10 feet away from their bedroom.
These areas are housing for the elite only, for the higher classes. Everything is exaggerated there. Villa with about 1,000 square meters of built-up area to have a family of 4 or 5 persons to live in. People use much more resources than they need and that they can sustain. When you go to the suburbans or the satellites, the services are very sparse and there's no public transportation, so you have to get into a car and travel for 5 or 10 kilometers just to buy a cup of tea. This is not a livable city, it's not a walkable city.
Right now when I step out of my house, I don't really see people, and I miss that. You definitely feel isolated. You miss having a downtown area where you can have a cup of coffee and croissant in the morning or whatever, and a bookstore, just kind of, nothing extravagant, but the places that are kind of your neighborhoods. Most of my evenings are spent watching movies.
Now, if you are trying to make green areas, we're trying to make golf courses and private gardens and a lot of public parks, and so that needs water. Water is by the side of the Nile. Egypt has no rain at all. So you have to irrigate every plant you put in the land. A lot of plantation means a lot of irrigation, and this is not sustainable actually. I haven't heard about any developer who have tried to promote, environment-friendly compound, because that's not a need for the people. The people are lacking green areas, lacking space, lacking luxurious places. Developers are offering this dream to people who want to jump into a new class, and they don't think so much about energy or the future of the world or even the future of themselves. They're spending in an irrational way.
Streets are very narrow, which doesn't allow for ambulance or fire engines or even police car to enter this neighborhood. So the people govern themselves, and you can find all kinds of crimes because the absence of any control.
The people who are being marginalized need to be incorporated into the society somehow, and the more that they're marginalized, the worse off we're all going to be. We are all going to suffer and pay the price. Ignoring the problem definitely never helps.
We have now communities completely closed for rich people. Actually, what is happening is segregation. Poor have to live in area, in neighborhood, and rich people can live in another neighborhood, and they can never meet. Why? You concentrate poverty in some areas and concentrate wealth and rich people in another area.
People learn to deal with each other, partly because they live on top of each other all the time. And when you separate people into isolated little communities, it really changes the nature of the place. And it's not quite clear what sort of effect that will have. already a lot of new corporations, a lot of the IT industry, a lot of the financial industry. They're all moving out to these new places, largely because you can park your car there, which is very, very difficult to do in central Cairo. Too much of what makes the big city work is being shipped out to suburbs, and the center will collapse.
So you might be astonished, but my students have never known anything about downtown, have never even gone to downtown, because they live in 6th of October or in Rahab City, in one of those cities. For me, this is in a way very astonishing, because it's as if the memory is being erased. I mean, it's the American suburbia being replicated in Egypt.
Cairo is actually becoming a tumor in the body of Egypt. We have to go into the desert. We have no other choice. We are just rushing out there, trying to fill every patch of land with buildings and greens and activities and businesses. We're not planning for the future of Egypt enough.
Hemos venido a lo que estáis viendo, que es la muralla que rodeaba el Cairo antiguo. Es una calle que a mí personalmente me encanta, es muy bonita, se llama la calle Moaz. Engancha el ambiente, engancha el espíritu, engancha las ganas de esta gente de vivir, engancha su paz, engancha las tiendas, las calles, las luces. Son palacios restaurados por Europa y lo que han hecho ha sido arreglarla con las luces. Las iluminan en verde porque el color verde es el color de la esperanza.